Karena suaranya kalau ada
Good afternoon, all participants. Can you hear my voice clearly? Okay. Thank you for joining us at International Collaboration Series. And this event will help in around 10 minutes more. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera, shalom, om swastiastu, nama budaya, salam kebajikan, dan salam sehat. Good afternoon, distinguished guests and all participants. We would like to thank you for your presence, and we honor the attendance of the Honorable Dean of Faculty of Psychology, University of Bhayangkara, Jakarta Raya, Ms. Mira Sekar Arumi, MPSI Psikolog, and the Deans from Whole Faculty in University of Bhayangkara, Jakarta Raya, the Honorable Associate Professor, Faculty of the Bachelor Psychology Program, University of Mindanao, Main Campus, Ms. Joani V. Intong, Master of Psychology, the Honorable Head of Psychology Program, University of Mindanao, Tegum College, Ms. Luis Norenti Tapis, Master of Psychology, RPM, and the whole functionaries in University of Bhayangkara, Jakarta Raya that I cannot mention one by one. And to all participants, we would like to thank you and welcome you to 10th International Collaboration Series. At Friday, November 26, 2021, which has been held as a collaboration between University of Bhayangkara, Jakarta Raya, and University of Mindanao. Ladies and gentlemen, allow us to announce the structure of the event today as follows. The first, opening, and then Indonesian National Anthem, and the Philippine National Anthem. Welcome remark by the Dean of Faculty of Psychology, University of Bhayangkara, Jakarta Raya. Welcome remark by Head of Psychology Program, University of Mindanao. Opening remark by moderator. Presentation by speaker, Mr. Eric Hutahayan, SPSI MSI. Director by Ms. Joani V. Intong, Master of Psychology. Discussion session, certificate awarding, and the last closing. Thus, we are the schedule of today's event that we will follow together. And before we start, may we all sit perfectly respect and sing our national anthem. Indonesia Raya, follow the Philippine National Anthem, Lupang Hindu.
Bayang magiliw pera sa silanganan, alam ng puso sa dibdib mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, duyan ka ng magiting sa manlulupig. Di ka pasisingil sa dagat at bundok, sa simuya, sa langit mong bagha. May ay dilagang tula at awit sa paglayang minamahal. Ang kislap ng matawat mo'y tagumpay na nagniningning. Ang bituing at araw niyang kailan pa may di magdidilim. Lupa ng araw ng wala di pagsinta, buhay langit sa piling mo. Aming ligaya ng pag may mga api ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Dean of Faculty of Psychology, University of Bayangkara, Jakarta Raya, Ms. Mira Sekar Arumi, Master of Psychology Psikolog, will begin the welcome remark for today and will officially open 10th International Collaboration Series. To Honorable Ms. Mira Sekar Arumi, Master of Psychology, Psychologist, time and spirit are yours.
Thank you, Ms. Helma. My voice can be heard by everyone. Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Honorable Ms. Luis Norin Tetapis, MPC RPM as Program Head of BS Psychology Program, and Honorable Ms. Iza Aimaji Monte de Ramos from External Relation and Internal Affairs, as along with Mr. Eric Saud Hutahian, SPC MSc, as our speaker today, alongside with Miss Joni V. Intong, MPC Associate Professor, as reactor for Mr. Eric Material, and also our beloved and lovely Miss Rika Fitriana, MPC Psikolog, as our moderator. I greet you all. Good afternoon, magandang hapon. Firstly, let me introduce myself. My name is Mira Sekar Arumi, as mentioned by the MC. Currently, I serve as Dean of Psychology, Faculty of Psychology, University of Bayangkara, Jakarta Raya. Today's event as 10th International Webinar Series is one of high impact follow-up towards the memorandum from Universitas Bayangkara, Jakarta Raya and University of Mindanao. Today's theme regarding efforts to understand psychological process behind lying behavior is one of the issues that has brought to attention in our faculty, which carries a specialty in the field of polypsychology. To the end, we hereby presented one of our experts in polypsychology, Mr. Eric Saud Hutahian, SPC MSc, to present about this topic. And I do really hope that his presentation will provide understanding and also input regarding the psychological process of a person when he or she do lying. So that not only this topic will help us detect lies, but also help us understand the reason why someone should lie or prefer to lie. We also feel so grateful and send our best regards to Miss Joni V. Intong, MPC Associate Professor, for her willingness to give response. So then we can discuss and deepen this topic webinar material. And I will give my most immense appreciation to any member from UM and UBJ who help hold this event. Hopefully, we all can get optimal benefits. Amin. That is the welcome for me. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Let's do this webinar starting.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Ms. Mira. Applause for her and officially open the webinar. Okay, the next for welcome remark from University Mindanao, Miss Luis. Miss Luis already with us. Can respond me, Miss Luis? Miss Luis can respond me? Hello, Miss Luis.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and then next welcome remark from University Mindanao. On this occasion, represented by Head of Psychology Program, University of Mindanao, Taigum College, Ms. Louise Norin T. Tapis, Master of Psychology, RPM, to Honorable Ms. Louise Norin T. Tapis, Master of Psychology, RPM, time and screen are yours. Please, Ms. Louise.
So once again, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We are now at the end of our 10th International Webinar Series, lecture series for the psychology of flying. So we thank everyone who has been here with us along the way since day one up until this very moment. So I would like to thank you, and most especially the University of Jakarta, for inviting the University of Mindanao for this opportunity this afternoon.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Louise. Okay, and now I'm sure you cannot wait for the main session, but this is more important. Yeah, you can take a picture. May all participants activated the camera. So many slides in here. There are 19 slides. Okay, there are 19 slides. Be patient and smile sincerely. Okay, operator, please help me. Okay, everybody already opened the activated. I wait for 1 minute to all participants. Activated the camera, please. All right, operator can help me to take a picture. Okay, oh, now 20 slides. Okay, slide 1, 1, 2, 3. Slide 2, 1, 2, 3. Slide 3, 1, 2, 3. Slide 4, 1, 2, 3. Slide 5, 1, 2, 3. Slide 6, 1, 2, 3. Slide 7, 1, 2, 3. Slide 8, 1, 2, 3. Slide 9, 1, 2, 3. Okay. The whole, okay, thank you. You can take us on social media, the whole event today. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, now we'd like to proceed the main session, the webinar with theme Psychology of Lying. This webinar will be led by Ms. Rika Fitriana, Master of Psychology, Psychologist. She is a psychology lecturer of Faculty Psychology, University of Bayangkara, Jakarta Raya. Please welcome Ms. Rika Fitriana, Master of Psychology, Psychologist. Time stage are yours.
Thank you, Ms. Emma. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and all the participants who are here today. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. It's been an honor to me to be able to attend this webinar series. And today I will perform as the moderator for our discussion for today. It's really excited for me because today are the 10 international collaborative lecture series between University Bayangkara Jakarta Raya and University of Mindanao, Philippines. As we know, we started from the beginning of the year of 2020, and now it's almost, the year is almost end, and we really hope that this collaborative series will be continue next year. Okay, for the first speaker for our today session is Mr. Eric Hutahayan, SPC MSE, that will present his paper entitled The Psychology of Lying. But before that, allow me to share Mr. Eric Hutahayan's short biography. Mr. Eric was born in Jakarta on August 24th, 1979. He lives in Bekasi, Indonesia, and he has more than 10 years experience working as lecturer and also productive researcher. Well, we are really glad to have Mr. Eric today to present his paper. Okay, I'm not gonna wait any longer. Yeah. Now let's hear Mr. Eric Hutahayan presentation. Mr. Eric, the screen is yours.
Okay, thank you. Thanks to the moderators for allowing me to present the presentation about the psychology of lying. The Honorable for all of deans who attended in this valuable forum. For this time, let me to explain some themes is quite interesting for us to understand together, because unconsciously lying is a fact that always happens in the communications process from time to time. Please, slides. Okay, although religious moral considerations state that lying is a sin, but through this presentation in this forum, it seems that we also need to look at it from the perspective of psychological theory, especially the perspective of social psychology theory. For introduction, next slide, please. As a keywords to enter the presentation explanation, we will start with social communication behavior. The process of human interaction is carried out through the communication process. The form is positive communication or negative communication. Positive communication can be known through a constructive interaction process. On the other hand, negative communication shows a lot of sending false information. Everyone who has been able to interact must have told the truth and also said dishonesty to others in their daily social interactions. When we look at the cycle of time during one day, someone must be lying in their social interactions. An explanation of this can be known through the result of the study. The first study described by Fritz 2000 explains that on average, humans lie almost twice a day or one part-time during social interactions. And the second study, another study found in close relationship. The explanation from the results of the study proposed by De Paulo and Cassi, the core explanation is that the relationship between school friends and community friendship is proven correlate with the frequency of lying communication. Lying turned out to be one of the techniques used to convince and influence others. Unfortunately, this technique is classified as a negative communication process because the perpetrator will be labeled as an individual with the term morally reprehensible. That's why everyone who lies tends to get called a subject with low moral values, whatever the reason, in the name of the goodness or other reasons. it doesn't matter whether it's a white lie or black lie, because telling lie brings distrust. Next slide, please. The issue of lies is no longer concerned with lies occurring face-to-face or computer-mediated communication. For example, the spread of fake news known as hoax. Because the average lie that occurs face-to-face or mediated by a computer does not show any difference. There have been quite several studies on lying that have succeeded in revealing detecting lies based on a cognitive process approach. This opens up opportunities for psychological scientists to study lies through a psychological approach, specifically social cognitive approach. The way liar covers his lies is done by involving a fairly serious mental effort, because the liars evaluates the interactions that they carry out, then design good answers to convey. If the truth is conveyed, it will bring danger to him. There are assumptions about the cognitive process of lying. Liars look for ways to respond to every suspicion that comes from the person who is the target of the lie. In other words, the liar tries to think about finding answers or reasons that the target can believe. Next. Before we dive into the explanation of social cognition, we need to know the basic concept involved in the act of transmitting false information. That is about liars, lies, and the strategy of lying. The point is that we get a basic understanding of false communications. The combination of communications and psychology approach is increasingly able to explain lying behavior. For example, the difference between lying and cheating. Lying is the act of producing and declaring false information. The perpetrator is called a liar, and the strategy is to tell lies. The interpersonal communications approach states that a person fails to detect lies due to a lack of understanding and lack of suspicion, to dig up utterance and statements that make no sense are far-fetched. This is usually related to the features of the message conveyed in interactive communication. The recipient of the information is not suspicious of the sender of information because the sender has expertise in linguistic behavior. Based on the result of the study, it is known that the features of lies are proven to have predictive power, although the power is not too large. The power to indicate the encourage of lies. For example, the content of imperfect speech and the content of speech that is different from usual. False speech is told by telling stories indirectly, and it doesn't make sense. Based on information manipulation theory 2, or IMT 2, lies are explained through first, by intention to perform, and the second, cognitive loadings. The third is manipulate information. The three forms that exist in the theory of IMT 2 help us to be able to see lies based on intentions, cognitive processing, and process used in manipulating information. Deceiving others is done by making sentences which are the results of verbal manipulation in cognition. The results of the study have succeeded in revealing that lying is related to verbal intelligence. In the case of a liar telling false statement, it requires a complex linguistic, intellectual reasoning power. This intelligence helps humans produce words in their daily interactions. Next slide, please. Referring to one theory, there is an explanation that lying behavior has three forms. It's from theory by Fritz 2000. It has a different form of lying. It calls as types of lies. The first type of lying is falsification, which is characterized by giving statements that are very different or contradictory to the truth. Contradictions means that what is conveyed is contrary to what is stored in memory. The second is an exaggeration, which is done by conveying information far beyond the actual things. In the case of exaggerations, liars convey information about something in exaggerated way. What is minimal becomes exaggerated. The third is subtle lying, which is done by conveying up the truth by giving vague statements, by making the actual situations invisible to others. Liars convey something that is intended to distract from extracting information. Everything that is conveyed goes round and does not end with certainty. There is issue. Next slide, please. Okay, this is reasons for lying. After knowing the three forms of lying, then we also need to know the background of someone choosing lies as a strategy for carrying out social interactions. In the explanations of the reasons for lying, we try to see it based on several principles or approaches from psychology. Liars carry out false communication based on the right reasons. The theory of reasons behavior explains that human behavior is driven by some reasons because each individual has subjective reasons that act as driving force for his behavior. Lying is a method used to achieve a goal, which is then used as an excuse to lie. In general, lying is an ego mechanism that is used to defend oneself from situations that can make the individual enter into a disturbing condition and a satisfaction deficit. Liars become embarrassed, anxious, and afraid of the truth can be revealed and known to others. Behavioristic psychology also explains that predictions about human behavior can be known through the provision of rewards and punishments. The reward is referred to as a positive reinforcement, while punishment becomes a negative reinforcement. It seems that liars use punishment as an important factor to avoid being punished. But it may also be possible that lying is done to get a reward. The rewards or prizes will be obtained are very tempting for individuals to lie. thus the setting aside moral consideration to obtain an advantage. As psychology academics know, social psychology theory also explains the concept of a self that can feel embarrassed and not be uncomfortable. The result is a sense of shame and a decline in self-esteem. Social interactions open up opportunities for everyone to express their self-image, and almost everyone tries to present a positive self-image, even though the image that is attached may be bad. But for social reasons, a person manages to manipulate his self-image by displaying a falsely positive image when interacting. Next slide. In various discussions about lying behaviors, we will find other terms that intersect with the concept of lying. Namely, the term is bullshit and the crime of fraud. We will try to understand it by going through the psychology of communication. In the communication process, there are two actions. The first is confirmation, which means that information is conveyed through someone to another by explaining experience. The second, if the sender of the message obscures the actual message, it is called disconfirmation. The occurrence of communication disconfirmation will continue to act of communication that is not true. Lying is an act intended by the perpetrator carried out to tell what is not true. Any information that is conveyed to others in a lie is generated through memory manipulation. The principle of false logic may further help us to understand more about lies and the scope of lying. Lying has three conceptualizations, namely relative concepts, privative concepts, contradictions, and contrary. In other words, lying is done with subjective considerations, and efforts are made to keep the actual information private so that the perpetrator will convey something contrary to the fact. For example, the fact that someone saw an incident, but when confirmed, the person stated that he did not see the incident. Contrary means that there is a several of the subject and predicate, so that in communication trick, the subject and predicate are changed. For example, an actor twists the statement that the witness is the main perpetrator. In this case, the predicate on the subject of the actor is rotated to other subjects. Then what and how the explanation about bullshit can be distinguished from lying. The explanation of bullshit is known through an essay written by Frankfurt, 2005, which explains the results of very philosophical thoughts about the behavior of convincing others in persuasive ways. The concept of the description is about the application of bullshit in communication. Bullshit is done by involving a convincing communication structure to persuade others with rhetoric without considering the truth. In bullshit theory, it is explained that the booster as the perpetrator of nonsense only focus on the impact of the persuasion he conveys. Thus, it is clear that the boundaries between lying and bullshit are represented through different forms of behavior. Lying hides the truth. Bullshit does not consider what is said right or wrong. There's another concept that is closely related to lying. This is the crime of fraud. This happens in every fraudulent investment, trade agreement, and another case. Cheating is simplified in the form of deceiving other people. By definition, fraud is deliberate as act or failure to act, with the intent to obtain an unlawful advantage, either for oneself or for an institution. Fraud is understood through events that occur when someone deceives another person by persuading the victims to be willing to do what the perpetrator wants. In the criminal system in Indonesia, fraud can be suspected through the criminal code or KUHP in Article 378. To minimize misunderstanding, let me read in Indonesian. Barang siapa dengan maksud hendak menguntungkan diri atau orang lain dengan melawan hak, baik dengan memakai nama palsu atau keadaan palsu, baik dengan akal dan tipu muslihat, maupun dengan karangan perkataan-perkataan bohong, membujuk orang yang memberikan sesuatu barang, membuat utang atau menghapus piutang, dihukum karena penipuan. In the English, whoever intends to benefit himself or others by fighting against his rights, either by using a false name or under false circumstances, both by reason and deception, deceit, or by making up false words, persuading people to giving something, making debts, or writing of debts, is punished for fraud. And next slide, please. Yes. This discussion slide is an important psychological process that moves in the process of lying. Therefore, we will get that understanding through the explanation of social cognition and false recognition. Social cognition is the process of perceiving and interpreting the behavior and state of mind of others, including oneself, through nonverbal and verbal input. The simplest form is seen through behavior when individuals interpret the thoughts of others through a mental process. Social cognition is also an ability to place a role in social process and communication process. Interaction. Mental process makes there simultaneous movement between social cognition and social intelligence, both up and down simultaneously. Cognitive process have been widely discussed in the literature of online studies, especially in the terms of the cognitive component producing lies. The point is that the executive function is generally used to control thoughts and behavior. All executive functions have a role in cognition. For example, thinking about plans and actions to be carried out, including inhibiting impulses. An example in this case is the process of talking to other people. Through the functional side of the language used in the speaking process, it is known that the results of cognitive and motivational process affect aspect of the social, physical, or psychological reality of the interlocutors. Similar to behavior, to fulfill needs, behavior is also formed because it is driven by cognition. Social cognition has two aspects. The first is the aspect related to the questions of whether activation of exceptions is justified, and the second is related to the individual-centered assessment process. These two aspects indicate that when giving reciprocal interaction of a person will use his subjective judgments to exclude some important things from being conveyed to others. If the context of the situation is considered to bring discomfort, then the reply given is not what he remembers. This happens because the liar concisely controls his speech based on a complex recognition process, but the way the chooses is false recognition. The next slide, we will discuss about semantic memory.
Mr. Eric, allow me to remind you, you have 10 more minutes. Thank you.
When the cognitive mechanism operates, it seems that an important point about the mechanism of lying in the area of choosing words to speak to other people. Cognition's work to process experiences that enter through sensory, then convert them into language and convey through the process of speaking to others. When humans speak involve two main stages of mental activity. The first, forming thoughts to be expressed, including choosing the words to be used. And the second, motor regulation of vocalizations and the actual work of vocalization themselves. The information of thoughts and the choice of words is a function of the sensory associates area of brains. Recent approach in the field of neuroscience explain that there are two complementary mental modules, namely neocortical and hippocampal learning, or in this name we call as a memory system. Cognitive executive functions are involved in behavior, in social behavior, especially in controlling inhibition and in working memory. The theory seems to be able to explain what causes when someone lies their intellectual work gets harder in line with the complexity of the lie that must be covered. The cognitive load becomes heavier over the long term. The cognitive costs become more and more inflated because to be able to lie, humans need more executive control when lying. Because of that, there was an unusual lag time in speaking compared to the time lag in another conversation. Regarding the fabrication of speech, the theory of the memory system on the mechanism of the human mind can be known through the way memory is employed by human. The semantic theory of memory describes an explanation of memory manipulation. A liar looking for sentences or pronouns that are equivalent but then used to find words to describe two different things. In other words, liars' response to questions asked by their interlocutor will be adjusted to the contextual situation and the availability of memories in memory, both working in balance and simultaneously. Next slide, please. The explanation of the cognitive flow when someone lies, it explains an important part of human behavior, especially regarding cognitive behavior when lying occurs. One of the techniques to find out the cognitive flow of lying is to study the cognitive stages when someone lies. The results of research that I have done together with fellow lecturers and students succeeded in proving that 5 stages are carried out when someone lies. Analyzing the cognitive flow of lying begins with a real experience stored in the mind's memory. The experience becomes something that is asked by interlocutor. When the interaction takes place, the interlocutor seems to force someone to recall their experience. When trying to remember, then it indicates that there is a cognitive effort that is trying to access the storage space in the mind until finally getting back the story about the experience. But in interacting, someone will reconsider the intention of the other person to explore his memory. Judgment refers to the results of a positive review of the impact that will occur if the experience is conveyed. If the results of the review convey that there is a danger risk, then the way to respond is by fabricating memory, which are done by modifying the actual memory. In other words, what will be conveyed is not from truth memory. Instead, comes from false memory. Then a lie has occurred.
5 more minutes.
Okay, this is the table of flow, cognitive flow when lying. We can see this is better capture the meaning of the cognitive flow as an illustration. We can see the image on the screen in the picture. It can be seen that lying begins when other people ask us, and then that's when the results of the evaluations give a signal about bad risk, memory modifications occurs. That's why when someone lies, what they conveys is false memory. Next. Pictures illustration. The image on the screen provides an illustration of the general process of lying. Make it easier for them to do denial, so that every term and the proposition that is said turns into meaning that is not original. Deceiving others requires intelligence. The goal is to successfully deceive. Intelligence includes a high level of intelligence, which is usually referred to as high intelligence. Okay, the prefrontal cortex is an important structure for carrying out executive function. The prefrontal cortex provides a mechanism for cognitive control, as an ability to coordinate thoughts concerning internal goals. Intelligence has been studied by looking at global brain cognitivity by observing the role of frontal cortex. The results indicate that there is a relationship between lateral prefrontal cortex and fluid intelligence. This result is considered to reflect that the thing that underlines cognitive controls is intelligence.
1 more minute, Eric.
The analogy of the involvement of self-monitoring in the study of the psychology of lying is built on a social concept. The conceptualization is that interacting people prepare to display their positive self-image and try to monitor their appropriateness during the interaction to ensure the level of success of the goals they want to achieve. Self-monitoring can be used by someone to maintain the appearance of his self-image based on social situations. Monitoring is by observing and controlling self-reactions based on situational cues, and that be used as a guidance to suit the situations. Similar to mechanism of lying, the mechanism of self-monitoring is by paying attention to the situations and context of the conversation and ensuring that memory and speech can be controlled. Self-monitoring has 3 elements, each one which is charisma, performance, and social sensitivity. To avoid the discomfort and the effect of the way people speak, certain physical reactions, humans try to regulate their behavior if this is following the role of the executive function. Where the working memory is supervised by executive functions to allocate and manage the replacement between task and control strategies. Its simple form can be seen through the way individuals organize their conversations, producing speech and organizing speech. The moral law is something that is always realized to identify the context of social environment. This is what ultimately makes self-monitoring chosen by someone to maintain every social response to avoid mistakes. The last. Maybe a great liar very good at monitoring his self-image. They are very capable of keeping all their speech in neat order, and can also regulate their body response appropriately, so that the things that are displayed and his words are considered honest words. The main power to detect lies is by using suspicion. Maybe we've also read about the traits that appear when people lie, but it turns out that the traits we know overlap with other attributes. For example, people who lie are seen through the reaction of lowered body, moving legs, or a soft vibrating voice. Such traits overlap and are highly controllable by liars. But there is one point that is very difficult to control, namely eye movement. This is the basis for several studies on lie detection that have recently been interested in tracking eye movement. Eye tracking is an attempt to track eye movement used as a method to predict certain conditions in humans about physiological and psychological conditions. At first, this method was done very manually, even though it was already using videographic image combined with brain activity detectors. But in the latest study, eye tracking has involved use of computer programs and computer graphic visuals. In the study of lie, an eye tracker The eyes are one of the clues that represents occurrence of certain mental process in the human mind, one which is the process of thinking when lying. Theoretically, eye tracking is used for many things, which essentially becomes a tool to describe the cognitive efforts. To learn about the cognitive effort of lying, eye tracking can be done on two reactions, namely eye blinking, and pupil dilation. But in other eye tracking theories also explains the cognitive efforts of lying through eye movements in the forms of eye movement and eye blink. Next. The image shown today is an illustration to compare pupil dilation under normal condition and when lying. Pupil dilation was also associated with cognitive effort. Pupil dilations can be an indicator of fraud. We can know the process through the role of the autonomic nervous system in the regulating pupil size. So pupil size is not only due to light, but also associated with increased cognitive demand. To keep their lives from being exposed, liars experience increased demands on their cognitive. The picture shows an illustration of the comparison between the eyes in the natural state and the eyes when lying. In the natural state, the size of the pupil is normal, so if there is an enlargement, it is only caused by light. But it is different when you lie. Pupillary dilation occurs due to heavier cognitive demands than in a natural state. When lying, the pupil moves wider as a physiological impact because there is an increase in the demand for cognitive work process. That's all the explanation about the psychology of lying. There are still limitations in the discussion that I convey, hopefully useful and can add the horizons of our knowledge. Sorry that the lack of explanation. Now I will return this event to moderators.
Thank you very much, Mr. Eric Hutayang, for your very clear explanation. If I may conclude from Mr. Eric's presentations, we could find very interesting facts, like human lies almost twice a day when interacting with other people, whether it is white lies or black lie. So, well, I hope we are not one of the respondents from this research, Okay, come on, and then lying and cheating is different, Well, maybe most of us think that it is the same thing between lie and cheating. Well, the fact is it's different. And then also lies can be explained through intention, cognitive loading, and manipulating information. And then other interesting things to see the difference between lying, bullshit, and fraud. That is very interesting concept. I hope we can learn further more about this interesting concepts. And then eyes become the window of deceptions. So all participants, if you have any questions, you may write down your questions in the chat column. But before that, now let's continue to the next session. We shall give this opportunity to Ms. Joani V. Into, the representative from the Faculty of Psychology, University of Mindanao. But before we give her the chance to present, allow me to introduce her briefly. Ms. Joani V. Into, Master of Psychology, was born on June 18, 1994. Now she is Associate Professor in University of Mindanao. Well, her expertise is on developing exciting curriculum lessons, classroom management, course design, and curriculum development. Wow. I hope that's enough for her brief biography. And I shall give the time and screen to Ms. Intong. The screen is yours, Ms. Intong.
Okay, thank you, Moderator Rika. I'm not sure, am I audible? Can you hear me all?
Yes, clearly.
Okay. All right, so good day, everyone. My name is Joanny Intong, one of the psychology professor in the University of Mindanao, Philippines. So I would like to take this opportunity first to thank the University of Bayangkara, Jakarta, Raya, for reaching out the psychology program of our university. And at the same time, it is also refreshing meeting new people, new faces amidst pandemic, right? Even we are just, facing in a virtual room, but it's very significant and refreshing. So again, thank you. When Ma'am Isa of Iriao messaged me about being a reactor of some presentation, which we know already, as given to us by Sir Eric from a different university, I did not hesitate to think of it at first because I am currently reviewing as well in the clinical setting. But when Ma'am Isa sent me a poster where I saw the title, The Psychology of Lying, it turns out I was way more excited about the topic than I imagined. So thank you very much. But of course, I need to maximize also the time by saying my reactions and realizations given to us by Sir Eric. Lying has been part of everyday life, and we understand that one by the information and data given to us by Sir Eric. Regardless of the socioeconomic status, orientation, age, culture, life system, an individual has. Just like what we heard from the presenter, it can be explained by various paradigms. Like in the philosophical perspective, we might ask question like, is lying an absolute mistake? But in the field of psychology, on the other hand, we were reviewed by the information mentioned earlier, and we realized that indeed there are psychological principles that explain the concept of lying, from psychodynamic, humanistic, behavioral theories, and specifically mentioned by Sir in social cognitive theories. I asked the same question to several people after receiving this invitation, and I asked my friends and colleagues, do you lie? Why? And I received the same answers, which in general, they lie because they wanted to avoid the concept of pain, suffering, or even saving a relationship. And which is, I guess you can relate to that one, right? However, since we are in the same field, unending questions will always be there. Like, what will happen to a person enduring a secret in the long run? Does she or he experience a feeling of anxiety of the thought that she or he lied to someone? Or will it just give them pleasure by simply lying to another person? Or will you sacrifice yourself and carry that burden on your own? In short, we lie for many reasons. And those reasons may be comprehensible to the others and not. However, really, what's the difference in lying? I was fascinated by what Sir Eric said earlier, that lying is like a scapegoat or an escape to the most of us. And I 100% agree with that one, sir. Because I also lie. No, I am not a perfect person. I am not a perfect human being, so I do commit lies. But the question is, Just like what moderator Rika said, I hope we are not one with the white and the black lies. Lying then is like a spectrum, right? So the more you frequently lie to a specific person, the more psychological effect you might experience. Not just anxiety, but also getting stress on how to resolve the issues that has been there for a very long time. We tend to say that it is okay to lie as long as it is a white lie. But then again, it is a lie. Conditioning the self and having a habit of making white lies, sooner or later, it will not just a black lies, but it will be a colorful lies just to escape from the reality. Do you agree with that? Though we are human beings, after all, we are unique to each other. And that uniqueness somehow makes us varies in terms of committing lies in life. Furthermore, probably because the definition is lying is too broad for everyone. So just like Sir Eric mentioned, it's too complicated and complex to understand, tapping on the cognitive, neurocognitive, social dynamic, and all those kind of perspective that we can think of in the field of psychology. And I am pretty sure to everyone who is in the virtual room right now also have the idea what I am talking about here. And I wanted to share this blog also, if you don't mind. This was a blog made by Dawson McAllister from a site Hopeline. And he said, because earlier, Sir Eric mentioned about the different lying, types of lying. And Dawson McAllister also mentioned 4 different types of liars. And we understand that lying, liars, and liar is different. They have different definition. Although this is not part of the journal, but the concept of it came from those theories that we are studying. So he mentioned 4, the occasional liars, the frequent liars, the smooth liar, and the compulsive liar. The occasional liars, I think you can relate to this one because these are the people who seldom lie. But when they do, they're blown away by their actions and, oh my God, I lied to another person. I feel guilty. So I need to ask for forgiveness automatically. So that is an occasional liar. The frequent liars are those who go about this or her life lying every which way. So this type of people were not concerned about covering their tracks or making sure their lie makes sense. But take note, human beings have instincts. They know when you lie, especially if you are a frequent liars, right? Although we psychologists in the future are not great at the field of just predicting by looking at the palm. No, it doesn't work that way. We are in the system and very scientific. The third one is we have the smooth liar. So just like the description, sounds like this person has become very smooth and skilled at telling lies. Do you know someone? So these liars are so good with words and body language where people tend to believe them even when they know that they have a reputation of being a liar. And the last one, we have the compulsive liar. So they lies when they don't have to, even if telling the truth makes more sense than the lies they tell, that these people have impulse to lying and they simply cannot stop. They are out of control. And they spend hours studying the situation, trying to come up with more lies that will allow them to maintain all those previous lies. So those are the 4 liars that somehow I was really, in awe by reading this blog. Of course, I will not ask you anymore which type of liar are you, so we can relax, okay? So with the help of the presentation earlier, we now then understand that the psychology of lying will never be an easy route, to understand people because we have different reasons for why we lie from the start. However, it will always explain what will happen if we tell the truth to a person, which can affect our decision making and, of course, our behavior, which was mentioned earlier. And Sir Eric also, in the last slide, mentioned the eye movement and lie detector. And I'm not sure if there are students here, but I highly recommend this one because I also recommending some of the books to my students. In relation with eye movement and lie detector, you can search this one in the internet. The title of the book is What Everybody is Saying, and the author is Joe Navarro together with Marvin Carlins. So Navarro is an ex-FBI agent and created a book or guide to speed reading people in the perspective of neurocognitive. So these people are working more on the cognitive aspect or the brain localization and all those kind of stuff. So they had a lot of experiments and observations, specifically brain activity of criminals. Okay. Now, since I am also a fan of questioning, I would like to leave a question to everyone. Although you might answer this question or not, so feel free. A while ago, we listened to all the information about the psychology of lying, right? And we learned the variations of reasons. However, these are just my realization. After all the lying, is it we lie because we are denying who we are as a person, or we cannot accept the things that we can do and cannot do? So I will leave you that question. So again, thank you. And thank you, Sir Eric, for giving such interesting topic in the field of psychology. Probably sooner or later, I will also do a research on the psychology of lying. But this time, I'll try to answer this last question that I had. So thank you again.
Thank you, Miss. Okay, thank you, Ms. Inton, for your very great response. Yeah. If you allow me to summarize few interesting things I found. So according to you, yeah, you really feel excited, yeah, after knowing this theme. Well, actually, it is our pleasure to have you as our reactor for today. And then, as you mentioned before, that people tend to lie to avoid pain. Yeah, according to your quick survey, yeah, I guess. And then we lie for many reasons. Yeah, so there are so many reasons why people lie. And then when people tend to lie with the same person, it might be a result of anxiety or a specific issue between them. And then also the most interesting part that I got from your presentation is about the 4 types of liar, yeah, occasional liar, frequent liar, smooth liar, compulsive liar. And thank God we don't have to answer it, yeah. Okay, and then thank you also for your recommendation about the book that Joe Navarro wrote, yeah. Hopefully we can find it on the internet so we can buy it online since we are on social distancing right now. Okay, we shall continue to the next sessions. The question and answer session, sorry. Okay, I'm gonna read some of the questions that have been written on the chat column. Okay, first of all, from Febrianti Valentina. Febrianti would like to ask, a question about lies. If people lie, can it be because of the influence of their parents? I'm sure Febrianti wants to have an answer from both of the speakers. Yeah, I guess I will read it the 3 questions first, and then after that, Mr. Eric and Ms. Intong may answer it later. Okay, the second question is from Didi Irawan. I would like to ask something. Could you give the explanation that which part of the brain that working when somebody is lying and how does it work? Well, Didi, that's quite hard. Okay, but I'm sure our speakers will easily could answer it. Okay, and then the third question is from Mary Gabrielle. If someone likes to lie, can affect a decrease in self-confidence or not? Then, if someone is lying, is there any self-control that the individual is not aware of? Well, I guess 3 questions for this first session. And okay, 3 questions first. I will give the opportunity to Mr. Eric or Ms. Intong. Be my guest.
C is people lies because their parents communicate something to his child or her child. Parents becomes an important part of and become a model of behavior. And the parents is teach about how to do something, about the morality, about what is bad, what is good. It depends on parents, especially in the age of preschool, the age of schooling child. That's a time where parents give their child for a good morality about how to answer other with the truth. And maybe perhaps in sometimes other parents is teach their children about how to answer the interlocutors asking questions with the lying information, false information. It depends on the situations. That's why we must harness to ourselves that lying is a bad or good. When lying in the scope of the criminal is means deception is bad impact for the child, but in the social, or we call that sample lying, smooth lying, it's I think it's I can say that it's good. It's not good, but for the social interactions, lying is sometimes needed to fulfill our interaction to the social interaction, our social interaction. About the brain, the second question is about the brain.
Maybe one question first, Mr. Eric, and then we will give the opportunity for Ms. Intong to also answer the question.
Okay, do I need to answer the same question as well? Yeah? Okay, all right, so your question, Valentina, the question is, if people lie, can it be because of the influence of their parents? And I would like to emphasize your term, the word influence, because it's a very good word in terms of the behavior of a person itself. Now, if you use the word influence, then there is a possibility that we cannot really get 100% to make our parents as 100% reason why we lie as of the moment. Because people have the capacity to understand, because we are aware. Since we are born, we are aware of what is right and wrong. From the beginning that we learn to have the sense of awareness, right? However, the influence of our parents can be a big factor. And I agree with what Sir Eric said during the first 5 years, which is very sensitive. 1 to 5 years old in the developing stage of an individual is very sensitive because they don't know the concept of what is right and wrong. And if they are exposed to an environment where lying is just like the good things or the right thing to do, but in reality, it's not, so they will just understand that, oh, my mother do this, then I will also do this. My father is also saying this one, so I will also say this one because they did it. The parents did it. But then again, as you grow up, especially we have the opportunity that we are in the field of psychology, we somehow understand, especially in this generation, we somehow understand that it's not, we cannot blame the parents itself, 100%. We cannot blame the society because we are lying as of the moment. At the end of the day, we have the free will and choice. But very good with the word influence because it can. There is a possibility. So that is just my thought as well.
Thank you, Ms. Intel. Okay, now let's continue to the second question. I will read it. Okay, from Didi. Didi, could you give the explanation that which part of the brain that working when somebody is lying?
Okay, the part of the brain working when somebody lying. Okay, Didi, for explanation about brain, when people lie, we can look it from a book in Python that says about prefrontal cortex to explain about executive functions when people lying. It means, just wait. Okay.
Okay, I think Mr. Eric needs some more time. Okay, I will give the opportunity to Miss Into. Please, Miss.
Okay. Could you give the explanation which part of the specific? Okay. So we use the term localization if we are looking at the brain circuits itself. So the book that I recommended, the explanation is somehow there. So just like what Sir Eric said about the prefrontal cortex, which is in general part of the limbic system. And limbic system is the master of the human being because it became the driving force on decision making and other cognitive aspect of individual. And if you can remember during the presentation earlier, that even if we keep on lying, there are situations that you wanted to tell the truth, but suddenly your probably the response of your body, you will tell again the lie. It seems like you are conditioned about it. So that is also one of the reasons why we always correlate body language and the power of the brain or the limbic system. Because whatever the brain wanted to create or formulate in terms of responding to the environment or to another person, the body will also respond that way. There are situations unconsciously, you are responding to it. Like for example, I don't want to lie to my friend of going outside because it's pandemic. But then again, your body would like to agree because you don't want that person or your friend to feel offended or somewhat like hurt. And then suddenly, it seems like your body will just respond according to what you think would make the situation better. No? Something like that. So it seems like the relationship of the limbic system and the body language correlate to each other. So through that, somehow you can understand, or since we are studying in psychology, the word prediction is always there. We can predict if the person is lying, at the same time have the possibility or tendency of lying. And if we are given also an opportunity to study more about the limbic system and the frontal cortex and all those brain circuits and how it works, then it's most likely awesome to us. Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Intong. Now back to you, Sir Eric.
Okay, by regarding the fabrication of speech, the theory of the memory system and the mechanism of human mind is explained about the semantic theory of memory. It's an explanation of memory about the memory manipulations. In various scientific literature, intelligence described as a cognitive ability inform the ability to predict performance so that it can determine what individuals can do. In adults, this cognitive ability is the result of elaboration and formation of crystallized intelligence. Its use helps individuals influence others through social interactions. This means that ability to elaborate memory is controlled in the executive functions. Even theoretically, the role of executive function in human intelligence is show a relationship with the ability to understand and level of speed perceptions. In this area, the prefrontal cortex is an important structure for carrying out executive functions. Yes, role of prefrontal cortex as an important part for carrying out executive functions. The prefrontal cortex provides a mechanism for cognitive control as an ability to coordinate thoughts concerning internal goals. Coordinate thoughts and concerning internal goals. Intelligence has been the result of the reasons about the prefrontal cortex indicates that there is a relationship between the lateral prefrontal cortex and the and fluid intelligence. This result is considered to reflect that the thing underlines cognitive control is intelligence. The main focus is in lateral prefrontal cortex, which relate to impress executive functions to control our response, to control what we should answer to interlocutor as for us.
Okay, thank you, Sir Eric. Well, I guess in short, the main part that plays the role of lying in our brain is the prefrontal cortex, yeah, because it has something to do with decision making, whether someone decides to lie or to tell the truth. Okay, we will continue to the next question from Mary Gabriel. If someone likes to lie, can affect a decrease in self-confidence or not? Then if someone is lying, is there any self-control that the individual is not aware of?
Okay. This concept is called in psychology as a self-monitoring. The analogy on the form of self-monitoring is about to maintain our appearance of about our self-image. In monitoring, people observing and controlling self-reactions based on situational cues and use what he or she control, monitor is then used as a guidance to switch the situations. Our self-monitoring have a conceptuals to help people prepare what should display their positive image in the appropriateness behavior or with the inappropriate behavior, which if the truth is making someone embarrassed, anxious, being punished, so that people maybe have to control himself. Of course, in this case, is have to control his self-image, being positive. Even the reality is a bad image, people change, becomes a positive image.
Okay, thank you, sir. Ms. Into?
Okay, I agree with sir. Sometimes we do lie because of that self-image, right? And we wanted to have an image that is positive to everyone. And somehow the question if it can increase or decrease the self-confidence of a person, the reason why we have different perspective towards lying is because our reason really varies. There are people out there who lies and they can just live with it. But there are also people who lies even a little bit, but they feel anxious and stressed about it. So it might depend on the person itself, but the role of the psychology is not to give you an accurate answer, but to give you the possibility and tendencies on what will happen to the person. Then the question if there is there any self-control that an individual is not aware of in terms of lying. Since we are human being and lying became part of our lives, there are situations that we are not aware of lying. Just like, for example, the ego mechanism that Sir Eric mentioned in the first few slides, if I'm not mistaken, sir, because you mentioned ego mechanism and suddenly it pops out into my mind that, oh, Sigmund Freud and oh, defense mechanism. Because defense mechanism somehow tends us to lie on who we really are as a person by suppressing and by burying all those painful memories that we don't want to experience. And that defense mechanism turns out fighting over the consciousness of an individual because of the feeling of anxiety. And we don't want to feel anxious, right? You don't want to feel that kind of emotion because it's so stressful. And because of the defense mechanism, we are not totally aware that we are already defensive at some point in our lives. And I am guilty of that one as well. Now, I feel like I am a very slow in terms of my productivity as a teacher, but I deny that aspect. And somehow I am not aware of it 100%. So to answer your question, there are ways on how to be aware because it's a matter of practicing, looking at the strengths and weaknesses, and at the same time, the situation when you, just like what Sir Eric mentioned, self-monitoring. So it's a very good practice in terms of checking yourself if you are in the right path or not. Okay, so that's my thought also.
Thank you for your thoughtful answer, Ms. Intong. Okay, I guess not only affects self-confidence, yeah, but also sense of insecurity, I guess. Okay, the third, we have one more question here from Claire Dupont. Good afternoon, ma'am and sir. May I ask if there is any instance that we are already committing a lie, but we did not aware of it at all? Is the term lying applicable for such, or such an instance can already be something else or other term?
In the cognitive process, in terms of lying, it's in the area of false memory. False memory explains about two characteristics. The first, which is forget or forgot, and the second is manipulation. It means the reality is changed or being exaggerated to becomes another informations with contrary or more exaggeration. If the case someone telling something which is they are say something because he's forget about the real information about something, it means not lying. But when someone change, manipulation, fabricates his memory, it means lying. So if we forget, it's not lying. But this is very weak if we saw it in the criminal movement, the perpetrator, the perpetrator will say he's forgot about something, and now it is to cover up what the real, and then when someone say about not real, false information is delivered to interlocutor, it means lying. If we show if we say something because we forgot, it means not lying. It's a difference.
Okay, thank you, sir. And Ms. Intong?
I don't know if this is my student. You're giving me a hard time. Okay. So your question is the term lying, and then you are not aware of it. If you can remember the question I gave earlier, actually the concept of that question is all about self-denial. And that self-denial somehow turns out the reason why we unintentionally lie to other people. I asked because another answer coming from my colleague about the question that I had a little survey, and some of the answer goes like this, like, no, I lie, and that is not intentional because I don't want to hurt anybody. And that is my reason why I lie. And that is unintentional. So she kept on repeating the word unintentional. It's not her decision to lie, because if I'm going to tell the truth to another person, it may create a chaotic relationship. But then again, I need to ask the same question and again, so that I know what is really the reason behind the repeated word of unintentional. And I asked if is it really unintentional, or you just don't accept the idea of the consequences if you will tell the truth to the person. That is just my realization. Well, I am just asking my colleague about lying itself. But honestly, if we are in a situation where we are unconsciously lying to another person, try to reflect on yourself as well. If that is really unconscious, intentional, unintentional, or an accidental lying to another person. I don't know what term you will use, but just like what we have mentioned earlier about the 4 kinds of liars, we have also the occasional liars where we didn't intend to lie to another person, but automatically we feel guilty somehow about it. So that is just my idea, and probably you can also reflect on that aspect.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Intong. Well, I guess we have already answered all of the questions here, and I guess it's a wrap up. Thank you for Mr. Eric and Ms. Intong for your very thoughtful explanations. If I may sum up our discussion today, I guess what we can learn from this discussion is human tends to avoid pain, but whether we decided to lie or not, it is our responsibility to make the right decisions for the sake of ourselves. Thank you for your time once again to Mr. Eric and Ms. Intong. And I guess I'm going to close our discussion. Thank you. Good day. Have a great day. And I will back to Miss Hema, our MC for today.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Rika. Thank you for all speakers and moderator for the information and knowledge which have been given to us. May it be useful for us. And to show our gratitude, kindly accept the certificate from us. Certificates will be given by Dean of Faculty of Psychology, University of Bayangkara, Jakarta Raya, to Ms. Mira Sekar Arumi. Please join us. And then, operator, please, the certificate, e-certificate for Mr. Eric Saudhamutayan. Okay. And then, for Ms. Joanne Into. Okay. And then the last, but important, Ms. Rika Fitriana, MPSI, Psychology. Okay. Okay, thank you for the operator certificate. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the webinar which has been held as collaboration between University of Bayangkara Jakarta Raya and University of Mindanao has been done. But first, I remind again to fill the list attendance in chat column for students of University of Bayangkara Jakarta Raya and lecturer, and for the University of Mindanao. Okay. On behalf of the webinar committee, we are grateful to convey our appreciation to all of the speakers and participants, and see you in the coming events. If in guiding this event, I made mistakes or offend someone here, please forgive me. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera. Shalom, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, salam kebajikan, dan salam sehat. Thank you and goodbye.
Mendung tanpa hutan, ketemu lan kelangan. Kabeh kuwi sing diarani perjalanan.
Bye bye and see you again.
Duwe taun duwe bayangan plonjo
Thank you so much for all the training, Miss. See you upcoming Tuesday. Bye-bye.
kenangan aku karo kowe wis pisahan, aku kiri kowe kanan wis beda.